because I want men to talk about it. It's okay to talk about it. So, let's say in real life, if I had a friend like that, A, how do I recognize the signs? And B, what can I do to help?
Well, I mean, at least for me, I can't speak for everybody because everybody handles depression different ways. I mean,
Right.
you look at Robin Williams, and I mean, he was the biggest cracker joker, making everybody as happy as he could be, and still, decided that it was the end. I mean, so I guess it really depends on that person. Um,
Depression, or I think comedians have a lot of problems with
yeah.
depression. I understand, you know.
But I mean, for the most part, irritability, self isolating. You just kind of won't see them much anymore. They'll be quiet. They'll kind of always be in a bad mood. I mean, I guess it really depends on how well you know that person. I would think that you'd visibly see a change, in them. I mean, my bosses have known me for 9 years, and I had a situation kind of hit me pretty hard today. And yesterday I'm on top of the world, and I'm not bipolar. I'm not, whatever. So this isn't like my normal. Normally I'm an okay person. Some days I got bad days, some days I got good days. But like yesterday, I was like top of the world, and then the next day, my boss looks at me and he's like, "What's wrong?" So I explained to him the whole situation. But if you know somebody enough, you're probably going to see that something major has changed in their personality. That's going to be your big key. Is that person that's normally happy go lucky, hey, whatever, or at least
Yeah,
melancholy
absolutely,
is
man.
just going to be totally,
And
he's not going to have that pep in his step. He's going to probably be, shrugged over a little bit,
that is
just
true.
not happy, I
Because
don't
we
know.
know the unaliving rates are, well, especially here in the UK. I don't really know about the US so much, but the men's unaliving rates. Sorry, Jen, did you want to say something, darling? Gen X?
No, I said they're high.
Yeah,
Oh,
he's
okay.
They're
just
like
coming that it was high.
two,
Oh,
Yeah.
70 something, 80%. They're the
Yeah.
highest of any demographic.
right.
Mm.
And
I'm
so
high. What are we talking about?
you're so silly, Denison.
Mm.
Well, that's why I want to talk about it
But
because it saddens me.
like Mel, like my case is extreme where I lived like near New York City, and then I moved to Massachusetts, and then I went to like first grade. I was like first one at the bus stop, all alone. And then when I went to school, like I didn't have any friends, and then they all of a sudden accused me that I have dyslexia, and back in those days, they kind of throw you into like what they call
Special ed.
a special ed room, or in the old days they call them a retard room. And with people with blindness and all kinds of problems where they can't keep up with the regular kids in the class, and and ever since then, I was always in fights on the bus and shit like that, and never really fit in well, and so my anxiety level was really high at a young age, and then as I got older, like America was saying, I'm sorry, I don't know the guy's name in the left corner on
Sorry,
the.
Phil, can I interrupt you just for a second? Then you can carry on. I
Yes.
just want to speak the truth. I've seen your message that you've written in chat, and I'm really hoping that you can hang in there and just listen to this panel. And, you know, I'm really hoping that it might help. So carry on, Sue Hater. My bad. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I was just saying hi to Joe Cole because I haven't seen him in like 2 months. He was in the chat. So anyway, yeah, so like life goes on, and I really never even got treatment for anxiety or anything. And it just it kind of you just kind of cope with it as a male, and it just kind of it sucks, It's it, and as an American, you just keep pushing on and try to do your best
And speak the truth. If
and
you want to
and
come up,
and and, and just kind of ignore the situation is what I'm saying, Mel.
I
You
think
know
a
what I
lot of
mean?
men do. Speak the truth. If you want to come up and talk to us, this is, it's an open panel. You're more than welcome. Yes, Eric.
One thing that I can say that did help me, uh, help get me a little bit out of the depression, was trying to do something. Was forcing myself to
Yeah.
not just sleep in bed. Try to figure out a task, and as long as I did the task, that made me feel a little bit better. If it was just cleaning up water bottles that were laying around, if it was fixing something I had to fix on the car, just being able to have a little bit of an accomplishment
Oh
in
yeah.
something. Definitely,
Yeah.
definitely, that was one thing that kind of helped me come out of my depression.
Yeah, I mean, like for me, I got asshole neighbors, right? And just even mowing the lawn is a pain in the ass because they're so anal where I live, right? And getting that job done, it's a massive accomplishment. You know what I mean? It's much harder for somebody with anxiety to do like simple tasks sometimes, and that's just my case. But once that task is done, you feel so much better about yourself.
Gen X, welcome to the panel, darling. Did you want to chime in and add to this, because it's really important that we get men talking about this?
Well, what's his name? Eric America.
Eric.
He just described my entire current life, so I was curious what got him out of it. But then he gave us a little bit at the end, which yes, the worst thing you could do in depression is isolate. So find somebody to talk to. Building your support network is crucial. If you really have nobody, I mean, reaching out to somebody is better than nobody. But find channels like this. Come to my channel. There's other channels out in the panelverse. There's discords. Like it's a lot easier to get support now online with the technology we have than probably in the past. And I think the trend is towards, I think the reaching out for mental health is becoming destigmatized and more normalized. We see it in movies, TV, etc. But I think at the same time, men in particular are becoming more demonized and stigmatized than maybe they were in the past. And so that's causing their mental health to increase when you feel like you're the target or the scapegoat for a lot of things that have nothing to do with you.
Now, I'm gonna say one thing on that. Now I know Mel's over in the UK, and so this is more probably an American problem, and it might be over there too. The big problem I see with mental illness is um, within a day, I could get these within a day, um, but they couldn't find me an appointment to talk to somebody for a month.
Are you
That's
serious?
Yeah. I literally could get an appointment, and I didn't take these because I read the side effects, and it's still a full bottle, um I didn't like the side effects, and I honestly just didn't think. I think that if just a couple things in my life changed, that I could get better and I would be better. I didn't think taking an artificial, and that's not for everybody. Some people actually need those, but in my case, I didn't feel I needed them, and luckily I didn't. But it was a really sad thing. I really just needed to talk to somebody. I needed to talk to somebody, get it off my chest, and maybe get a little advice, or somebody to give me a hand or help me out. And that was the worst part is, yeah, they'll shove pills down my throat, and maybe it'll artificially make me happy, but just to talk to somebody, that would have been great. Okay. I'm
Is
gonna
that what
actually.
made the difference? Were you able to talk to someone eventually? Is that what made the difference?
Well, like I said, in my case, I was lucky. I was fortunate enough that I've got a summer job that it just came around that while I was still in my depression and whatnot, I've always been very dedicated to working, you know. I'm the only I was the only truck driver for this company for many years when they first started off. Now they've got a second driver, but I've always felt very loyal to them, and I always feel bad, if I had to call in sick or something like that. So I mean, I've gone in there, scratched cornea, sitting here driving with one eye, I mean, I feel like complete garbage. I roll the window up, the guys come over, I roll it down just crack, and I say, I'm
Yeah.
sick, just leave me alone. And
Yeah.
I'll just do my job,
Yeah.
because if I don't show up, then a crew of 10 other guys can't work, because I bring the asphalt, I bring the equipment,
Yeah, they were all on the road. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if I'm not showing up, they ain't showing up. So luckily for me, like I said, it just happened to fall in to the time frame that I finally got back to work. I started doing, some of these tasks. And that's really what probably saved me more than anything.
I want to ask you a question. Do you deal with the police that do these road construction things too? When when you get a big job doing a road, do they have police officers out there directing traffic and all that?
My company doesn't. That's all like state work. My
Oh, okay.
company deals in residential, commercial, and we'll do like private roads.
Yeah,
For
I
like
see.
beach
Okay.
properties. We don't do major
Yeah.
construction. That's why it's like, if we were a big company, it'd be kind of odd to have one driver, and 10 guys,
Yeah,
that
right.
don't work if I don't show up, so.
Yeah.
That's a
But
lot of responsibility you have, right?
yeah,
Over your head.
and that's been a big thing for me, and I think, feeling I mean, this company, I'll tell you, I love them. I love them to death. But when I first started working for this company, I'm surprised somebody wasn't getting killed by some of the safety issues they had.
Oh, yeah.
And I
Well, I
mean,
mean,
and
breathing alone, it's like a death with that stuff.
no,
Yeah.
I'm talking about the equipment. Like the dump
Oh,
truck I drove, you'd turn the steering wheel and the axle would shift on the leaf spring, and sometimes you'd turn the steering wheel and it'd still go straight.
oh
That's
yeah,
how
yeah,
bad. That's how bad this company was. The semis have air suspension,
yeah,
and the bushings that held the axles in place were so bad that they were actually gone. And if you raised up the air suspension, the truck
yeah,
would start to rock back and forth to the point that it literally wanted to flip over. I mean,
yeah.
this company's come a huge way since I started working for them. And I
Yeah, it
mean,
sounds like it.
and a lot of what it is influences that I've had with the bosses, things I've fixed that they just weren't gonna. They wanted $10,000 at Kenworth to fix those bushings.
Oh yeah.
I
I mean,
literally,
I worked as a diesel mechanic myself and dealing with that stuff. But like, how did it help with your anxiety? You just kind of like had some ideas and you were smart that it kind of overcame that anxiety when that kind of thing happened when the truck was kind of you were about ready to tip over.
I was
Yeah,
going to say,
you're
can
a
I ask
mechanic.
you, do you suffer with anxiety? Did you suffer with anxiety as well? Or was it just a depression? What
I
depression?
mean, I do get anxious about stuff. I mean, anxiety. I think everybody has some level of anxiety. I mean, anxiety to me, I guess, is another word for stress. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess define how you determine anxiety to be. I mean, what's your definition of it?
That's so funny. I always thought that everybody had anxiety and depression, but they don't. Not everybody has it. And I always thought that everybody had it.
But
Like everybody has
I
it,
only
right?
have it when I'm around other anxious people.
I think that
Sorry, what was that, Gen
like,
X? Sorry, 1 second. 1 second, Sil Hater. What was that, Gen X?
I said I only have it when I'm around other anxious people. I
Yeah,
get their anxiety, but
like
on my
me.
own, I don't really get anxious about
Yeah.
things.
I'm sorry, brother.
I can explain my anxiety, what it looks like. And I think Domenico described it really, really well. Domenico, can you put that up again? And it was like a fear like you fear a lot of things when you have, with me certainly, with my anxiety, it's a fear, and it comes out of nowhere, and it feels like I've got my chest is closing.
Yeah.
Is it
So
like a panic attack? Where,
Like panicky or like irrational.
like heart
Sometimes it's
attack,
not
going
rational.
crazy,
yeah, like a
not
heart
sure what's
attack.
happening thing?
Yeah, I mean, I know
Yeah.
it's not a heart attack because sometimes it will travel down down my arm, right?
Yeah.
I know it's not a heart attack. I know that my anxiety level is up here, and I've learned tactics and methods in which to
Yes.
lower it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
under that definition, no, I've never had like
I-
a panic attack.
That's more
with
panic,
pain.
but yeah.
Like for me, like a basic example is like, oh my god, I gotta get to this doctor's appointment. I don't know where it is, and I'm like chain smoking cigarettes on the way to the appointment. And then I'm like got the GPS going, and like, I'm just like stressed out through the roof. That's my anxiety.
Is it all the time or just situation?
Like situations where I don't know where I'm going, or like I don't know who I'm dealing with, or it's like
Mhm. Like
but
the
like
unknown
going
or chaos.
like going like as a young kid for me, going to the store, like I would be freaking the hell out, like going in there
Oh
thinking
wow.
like, oh shit, like I'm gonna see somebody in there, but like as I get older, um it's mostly just like appointments and things,
Mr.
it's
Pye, sorry, is that you in the back? Can I just see your face for a minute? Then you can turn your camera off.
an
Thank you, sweetheart.
experience
Got
an
you.
experience that I haven't had yet.
Eric,
Oh hey, Pi.
you're a mechanic, right?
I used to be a mechanic professionally. I
Mhm.
got out of the field back when like I think 2002 or 2004 Ford Focus came out. But I mean, I still repair things.
Were you
Yeah.
just on? Were we just on another panel together earlier?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we
Okay.
were.
Yeah.
We were over there on the.
Raging Tomato.
Yep. I didn't want to say the name, but yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah, no, we were over there, and I've seen you here before, and I think I've
Yeah, I
seen you over
invited
there
everybody
before.
to come.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm
think
glad you
I've
came.
talked to him before. Yeah, I used to be a diesel mechanic for PepsiCo, but I'll be quiet because somebody new came in, and I know he wants to say something.
Hi, Mr. Pye. Hi, sweetheart. Mr. Pye, can you hear us?
He's in the zone.
Oh, is that my cue?
Yeah, normally when I say hi, Mr. Pye, how are you doing tonight? I mean, if any of this, if anything that anybody says on the panel tonight helps anybody find a coping mechanism, then that to me is an achievement. And that's what I'm trying to achieve, even if it's just the one person that can hear, right, that can hear other men talking about it, how they coped with it. And if we can help one person, I'm happy with that. So, Mr. Pye, have you suffered with depression and anxiety?
I would say mine, like 90% of my entire life, not really. But as of like the last, maybe the 6 months or so, maybe I just don't want to admit it or something. But I wouldn't want to. I would want to label it depression, like, because to me, once we start labeling things as a certain, like a condition, like you identify as this, then I think we manifest our reality. And so, like, I think it's a mind game. And I think we create all of everything in our own mind. And the problem, what I feel is a lot of people that suffer with it the most, what I'm hearing is men or people that don't have an outlet or someone to share it with. So for me, I have a really close family and friends, and so I if I'm feeling a certain way, I express how I'm feeling, and I can get like some kind of other, like a different outlook, different aspects from other people before I start to feel a certain way, besides just me being cluttered in my own head. So I couldn't imagine if you had no one to speak to or no other outlets, period, and you're just stuck in your own head, then how it could create some kind of chaos or depression or anxiety in your own brain. But I think the main thing to me would be to have someone to talk to, and maybe these panels or even talking about it to anybody would be very, very helpful for any man or any kind of person that's going through something, is that you have to be able to talk to people and get some really objective, not someone that's looking for an angle, and maybe someone that's totally objective, that's not in your life, that already has an opinion or some kind of subjective view of who you and what you are, to manipulate the way you feel, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely makes sense. I mean, Gen X, you said something which I want to touch upon. You said this was your current life right now.
What Eric described about being a male, trying to make it in the job force, etc., the loneliness, the isolation, it's kind of like feeling that it's kind of like the Frankenstein monster syndrome, feeling like you're dangerous somehow, like the villagers, like you're trying to help and you have all these good intentions and you're trying to contribute to society, but the villagers are scared of you because, I don't know, men are getting scarier and scarier these days for some reason. And with what Pi said, I think also normalize men talking about this stuff. So the more other men do it, so that the rest of the men can see them doing it and have it be something normal, I think that's important too.
Because what I don't, and I'm guilty of this, right? And that's why I wanted to do this panel, to understand more, is that whenever I've seen a male friend close and I've not understood exactly what they were going through, my thing was, and this is going to sound awful, and this is why I wanted to do this panel, and I said to that person, man up.
Ooh.
This is what I'm saying. Even I'm guilty of it. And I wanted this panel so men could feel comfortable talking about these, these issues with no judgment, but understanding. Flo, hi, darling. I don't know why you've called yourself that. How you doing, my love?
It seemed topic appropriate.
Oh, right. What do you think? Do you think we do need to open up a bit more and allow these platforms to give people voices and to say it's all right to feel like this?
I maybe should have listened a little bit more before I just barged on in. I don't think so. I mean, like, I don't give a fuck what people do. I find no value I don't think so.
Well, good.
I mean, it's good that you guys are doing it. I don't think complaining helps anything. I think it actually makes it worse.
Well, that's not really what we're talking about. But
well, then,
I can see why to you it would seem like complaining.
As long as
then fill me in. I'm not trying to be like rude or abrasive or something. I think I'm just coming
about
cold.
Men opening up about, like, instead of being lonely and isolated with their stressors and their crises.
Well, yeah. I mean, men shouldn't be lonely and isolated.
Having it be normal to start talking about that with other people, particularly other men.
It's not degrading anybody. Yeah, exactly.
I sort of feel like, for men, at least for me, I feel like talking about an issue is counterproductive because I want to fix the issue.
Yeah.
And if I'm talking about the issue, that generally means that I can't fix it, and now we're just talking about how I can't fix it. You know what I mean? I think
so. It's made it worse. You think, Flo?
I think that it's an indication of something gone wrong, and that the way to fix it is not to talk about. And I can only speak for me, but is not to talk about it. It's to fix it, or figure out how to move past it. But
that makes sense too. I think there's multiple paths. For a lot of men, that initial act of talking or opening up or breaking that isolation is crucial for them.
And I sort of wonder though if like the talking it out encouragement is, and I'm not saying that I'm not like accusing anybody, but I hear this sentiment a lot, particularly from women, that men need to express their emotions. I wonder sometimes if that's not the wrong advice.
Depends what your goal
I think
is.
it's situational.
And sometimes I will say this, that women a lot of times see that as a sign of weakness.
A lot, almost always.
So
Yeah,
I mean,
or a sign
un-
of threat if
un-
it's the wrong emotion.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
like-
unfortunately, trying to talk to a woman about it, that can oh, he's a pussy, blah blah blah, this and that. Women tend to want a strong, strong man.
yeah.
That just keeps that
Yeah,
stuff
well,
inside because that's what they've been raised to believe.
That's
Mhm.
yeah.
Man up, man up.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, as
Real
a man,
men don't have feelings or doubt or anxiety
Yeah,
or fear.
Well,
it's how to
we have
move
feelings, but
forward.
like, so
Yeah.
like Flo just came in kind of late, but like the same thing. I was saying, 95% of my life, like I wouldn't say that I'm depressed or have anxiety. I'm pretty good, and I'm chill about that shit. And I don't want to like burden anybody else with that shit because I want to fix it, and I don't want to put that on anyone else because as a man, you want to man up. And I don't even think that's a bad statement, really, because everyone's
Yeah.
so offended by offending people. And I don't really, we shouldn't take offense to shit, really. It's like we should just get shit done as people.
Yeah.
I agree, but I'm
not
also
obsessive
concerned about the
everything
skyrocketing
fixing
suicide
the world.
rates.
Can I ask all the guys on the panel this question? Like, as a man, with all our problems, like the way we're dealt with it, we gotta like move forward and just ignore like everything behind us. You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
I
you don't have
reject
to do
that.
shit, but I guess
What-
my question.
The
Sorry, was that?
suicide rates are pretty high. So this idea that there's not a problem or we don't have to do shit or this just getting past is obviously not working. So it is
Well, I mean,
worth talking
have
about
we
alternatives
tried?
for people who want them.
Have we tried just solving problems? Right?
Some
Without
people
talking
do.
about them.
Some
Yeah.
people do,
Like,
but
I
when
don't know.
you're in
Maybe
certain mental or emotional
so.
states, your problem-solving capacity is not at its peak.
I personally,
I was just
and
going to say that you get so debilitated, by depression and so overwhelmed by the problems that are on top of you, that you just get to a point where you can't function anymore. You're not a functioning human.
So can I ask you a
I
question?
don't know if this. Okay.
Can I ask you a question, mechanic? Like when you
Go ahead.
when you say you are depressed, are you? So you're identifying that way. Like, what made you feel like that is you? That's your identity. Like,
I don't
like
think that this is
when you
identity.
well, no. What I'm saying is, if you call yourself depressed, that you can't handle anything. Like, how did you get to that state? That's my question.
Well, ultimately, it started off with losing my winter job and a financial struggle that I ran into. The loss of my friends, because they kind of moved on.
No bonus.
They moved on and stuff. They met girlfriends and they were spending time with their girlfriends and stuff, and just the isolation. I mean, I just, so it was a combination of a lot of things. It was realizations that, I'm getting up there in age. It was partially, I'm not meeting anybody. I was sick of being, well, I am still single, but I was sick of being single, and the worst part about it is I started rationalizing things. I started going, okay, I've dated the beautiful women, I've had my kids, and I've had a good life, and I sit here and I look at the path ahead of me and I'm like, I'm just gonna get older, and life's gonna get worse.
No, but that's your mentality, right? It's a mind thing. Like, why would you, if you project that or manifest that for yourself, like, why would you just put that as your future. So you're claiming depression, you're claiming that your life sucks at this point because all these things happen to you. Like, what are you going to do to change it, right?
Well, I
As people,
actually
we
have.
to.
I don't
So
necessarily.
I'm not depressed anymore. You know, I'm just speaking on the time when I was.
I don't
You
think
know.
if you
Okay,
have had
okay.
depression, you don't understand it. I just don't think you understand it very well. It's not. It's certainly not his identity. It's if you've never been through any kind of a depression, I don't think you have the ability to understand how that feels.
Hey, Manny. Hi, welcome to the streamer. You know you keep popping in and out. How are you doing, my darling?
I'm alright. Just finishing my night work stuff, and I was just looking around on the live section. I saw you guys, and I was like, I want to interact with the world and see if I can uncover something about myself.
Well, welcome.
And
Welcome.
because
Welcome.
I got a lot to unpack. That's why I didn't start interrupting you guys in the middle. And I'm so like I'm so
Uh-oh.
I'm not sure if that's a thing, but
What do you
We
say?
didn't
Say,
hear
honey, we
we
just
didn't hear
missed
what
it.
you said because
Yeah,
you
you
popped out
popped
for a
out.
second.
like a closet Sigma person, because
What does that mean?
I like someone who's sort of set in his ways, but like not like anybody else,
Mm-hmm.
and you know like I'm like a spiritual type guy in a certain sense, but people brush me off and say I'm kind of closed off. But then, out of nowhere, I'll just talk for hours. They're like, "Where did that come from?"
Right. Yeah. Then you think that that's a that you open up with certain people? Is it certain people that you feel comfortable talking to, or do you think that's just something that you I don't know how you describe it? Is it
I
is it a
I think I'm
problem?
like I think I'm like a type of ball of energy, and the more I experience with my
Isolate.
ideal traits, the more I grow, like year to year. But if something doesn't click with me, I'll just ignore it completely.
Right. Right.
And
Sounds healthy.
I never went to talk to anybody about relationships before, and I'm like where can I even start? Because I'm a very big individualized Muslim man, and I'm like 42 years old, and I've never been on a date before.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Because like once I start talking to people, my voice gets really loud, and until I get comfortable, that loudness doesn't go away.
Are you
Right.
autistic?
I never got tested or nothing. I didn't know like someone who gets like really loud and starts talking
Mm-hmm.
like that.
It could
If
be.
that's a
It could be
trait
anything.
that could happen for that.
Yeah, there's a whole spectrum of things. There's a lot of different things that
Yeah.
it can present. So
But I'm
maybe.
happy you're up here, Manny, talking to us about it. And actually, so far, the harshest criticism has been from fellow men.
Mm-hmm.
And this is
From
so.
Flo.
I'm going to ask: do you think that men get more criticism and harsher from men? You know, because you lot mentioned women will say "man up," but so far, you know, it seems that men are harder on each other than.
Only from psychopaths like Flo. I get it more from women, actually. the negativity.
Psychopath.
I get way more support from men.
Somebody's got to balance out the anxiety and depression around
Oh,
here.
No
shit.
denial. You yes.
Part of the reason why men are ineffective at addressing their problems is because the male standard of behavior is a female ideal, I think. So even though men reinforce the behavior, they're reinforcing a behavior that was taught to them by women.
The white knights.
So why is everybody looking for external standards of how they should behave? Like, I just sort of feel like what makes you feel better in a situation, whether it's talking about it or fixing it or whatever, like all these things you should know yourself and you can move in that direction.
But
Yeah,
not
I
everyone
definitely-
does. I agree. Just not everyone does, and that's where the help comes in.
I do think it's important to talk about things though, and and maybe it might not be with the talking about it with the woman that you're in a relationship with or a woman that you want to be in a relationship with. Maybe that's not the person you should talk to them about or talk to it about, but maybe a professional. And I don't think also some of those antidepressants are the side effects are there are side effects, but that's not a high percentage of people that have those side effects as well.
And men come talk to you, Crispy, privately.
What happens if you go to the government and they give you the wrong drug?
And Crispy, no offense, but you don't know what the difference between like a rhinoceros and an elephant or like all these animals. So I
that doesn't. So I don't have any value because of that.
And I want to touch on what he said about the wrong drugs real quick. Is the bad thing about these drugs too is a lot of times suicide is one of the risks. I believe it was. I can't pronounce that.
That's Eric talking. Sorry, Eric.
Yeah.
You were leaned back. I couldn't see your mouth moving.
Oh, I apologize, but yeah, I mean that's part of it too, where somebody said that they can prescribe you the wrong drug, and one of the major side effects of these drugs that they try to give you is suicide.
Yeah.
So that's scary in itself.
We were talking about that last night, I think, on flows, I think, but yeah, it's that can happen, but I think it's a small percentage. I believe that where that happens, and I think it's more for younger people,
right?
That it happens to, right? Wiccan, haven't you?
Yeah,
yeah. It's
I just want to say that anyone who was trying to get up on panel before, I've got a spot. Flo's dropped out. So if you could, I've just dropped the link. Anybody else wants to come up? I wanted to ask you, Manny. You said that you've never been on a date and you're 40 or so. Is that something attributed to self-confidence or to? Oh, he keeps popping in and out.
Mm-hmm.
A self-confidence, or do you think because of your mental health?
I think it's like a whole basket of different types of sort of things like maybe like 20 years ago, no, maybe like 15 years ago, I wouldn't even try to go online and talk to someone to see if like in my culture we try to look for someone to get married to, and like that first day wouldn't happen, like so nothing's ever progressed in the last like 10 years, and I'm like, I need to like date someone around me where I live, and maybe something will happen. But I've kind of been closed off in my 20s, and then in my 30s I'll just go to work, go home, eat. I was really basic, but like 7 or 8 years ago, I started like going out and talking to people, and I think like I'm sort of ready, but I need to identify like if I have some inner rage or something, and like why am I like like having that loud voice.
You may not be able
angry?
to do
Are you
anything about the
angry
voice.
when you have the loud voice? Is it when you're angry?
No,
Just when he's nervous.
the loud voice is a different thing, but like I feel like sometimes I got an inner rage. I'm like, why am I just sitting here doing nothing? And I got so many opportunities to do stuff at home, doing projects, but I don't go to learn that stuff, and I'm like, the
He keeps popping in and out.
Honey, your
Yeah, it's
internet
just
keeps
connection.
popping
Inner
in
rage
and
can be
out.
completely normal for some men. It's nothing to
Yeah,
stigmatize.
Do you have impulse control problems?
maybe in my talking, but like when it comes
Do you have a criminal record?
no.
Yeah, I think you're okay as far as that's concerned, but
Yeah.
you're definitely onto something. You knowing your God.
Like I don't have like a persona that likes a certain thing. If someone has a good beat to something, I won't care to the music. I don't have like certain favorite stuff that I want to listen to. I just go along with it, but I don't know if that's just me trying to please people in my surroundings or not.
Yeah, you may be a people pleaser and you may be agreeable by nature.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can identify with that. I sometimes will go along too.
But do
I
you
don't
have
know.
resentment?
That's what I was saying. Like, I'm like a closet stigma person, but I don't know what identifies my traits if I were to come out of the closet in that sense of like what's my inner self, like trying to figure out myself before I put myself out there and allow someone to get to know me when I don't even know myself. I'm
You
like,
can do both.
sometimes I'm like scared to even be myself with somebody.
Right.
You can be upfront about that when you meet someone new.
And when you're in
Not
it
always.
and coming out of the closet, do you mean that in do you know what that means?
Yeah, not in that sense, but like emotionally,
Oh my
like
God.
about like what kind of
Is she lecturing him on language?
yeah,
Oh God.
like
Okay. I got to wrap up
Yeah,
soon. I'm not gonna be able to
think
stick
that's
around
what
for
just
much
happened.
longer. Mel, I just wanted to end with next time you're in a situation where a man is having a feeling or wanting to open up and you have the temptation to say man up, just look at him and say it's okay. Like that sometimes that's all they need. And
Yeah.
I think with that I'll say good night. Thank you again for doing
Thank
this.
you, Gen X, for
I think
popping
more
up.
of these definitely helps.
Appreciate you coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you,
Really.
darling. Thank you for
Please
coming
come
up.
back again.
Peace, Jeff.
Manny, your connection's really bad.
yeah, I don't know
No.
why am I or why they keep on doing that.
It's because you're outside and moving around.
Yeah, because you're moving around, honey.
Sorry.
Who's popping? I keep getting people.
Oh
I keep
no.
getting boop, boop, boop,
Mel.
boop. That's all I
But
keep getting.
it wouldn't bring me back onto the channel. It still got me in the back room for some reason.
No,
Oh
you're
no,
here. You're on
you're up
panel.
on the
Yeah.
panel, honey.
Yeah.
But you just keep popping in and
Sorry.
Like musical chairs. My
I
eyes are
know,
going.
right? I'm being
Should I come
partial.
back in 10 minutes? Maybe because of the time and stuff and me
Okay.
running around. Maybe once I settle down, I can sit down.
Yeah.
That'd
I
be
can come
good.
back in 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
that'd
it'll
be
be
great.
better if you're stationary and close to
Yeah.
your
I
connection.
think that's a good idea.
All right. I'll talk to you guys in a bit.
Okay.
And hopefully this can help me to grow to get into a relationship or something.
Well, Money, I don't think there's anything wrong with your voice, to be fair.
Me
I
neither.
I really don't think it shouldn't. I was just concerned about your mental health because and how it relates to the dating aspect, or is it just the dating? Oh, he's gone. again.
I mean,
Debate the cognitive
I can
strength.
hear that he has a speech impediment, and women can be very judgmental. You know,
Yeah.
so, I mean, that might be part of, and then he gets loud when he's nervous. That could be a lot of what's kind of held him up.
Yeah, in my experience, someone with that type of impediment, disability, whatever, they can only have natural conversations with people who have similar disabilities, like
Detox, is
without
that you?
without the judgment.
Without the judgment. Well,
Butt
Detox,
plug.
is that you, darling?
Butt plug.
Oh, yeah. No, you're right. But well, I would encourage people with any speech impairment or any kind of disability like that. Okay, Resto, no worries.
Differently able, Jeff. Thank you.
To come up and communicate, and because I didn't think his voice was that bad. I didn't think.
No, it's not at all.
Bad
but
at
it's
all.
the type of thing that, like, when a woman's meeting you and deciding whether or not she's interested in you romantically, whether there's a potential for something to happen, she's already making decisions in her head. I'm not blaming a woman for doing that. It's a perfectly natural thing to do. But I just think that we're not helping anyone when we try to pretend that it's not what's happening and that's not what's going on.
How do you know what women think?
How do I know? I don't know.
I've got some questions for the panel.
Yeah.
Which are from one of our viewers. So if the men up on panel can answer these, that would be great. Any one of you or anyone in chat, that'd be great. When you're feeling down or upset, do you keep things inside or isolate yourself?
Inside.
Personally,
Those are the only two choices
both.
we get?
I think both.
Inside for me.
Is that a one or the other?
No, I either or both, or anything you want to say. It's just a question from one of our
Can you ask it again?
Yeah, of course. When you're feeling down or upset, do you keep things inside or isolate yourself?
Yes.
Both.
Yes.
How about
isolating myself is not a bad thing for me, though.
Why is that?
It's how I recharge. I need it. It's a core part of my health. I'm very introverted. And so in order to deal with people, I need a lot of alone time. And then I have select people that I logic check and I discuss my feelings with that I can trust for the constructive feedback. I don't really do validation. Every once in a while, but it's extremely rare for me to need validation.
Well, what do you do when your battery runs out and you still have things you need to take care of?
Alone time really helps. It helps me a lot. I'm programmed the same way anybody else is, but I recognize it's programming and I reject it. So there's a lot of things I do differently, like the type of pressures people feel. I don't respond very much to those. So, like, if I feel like I need alone time, I'll take it. And if somebody thinks that makes me this or that, or they expect me to do this or that or the other, it doesn't really push on me quite as much as I see it does my friends,
How does this program manifest itself to you?
Can you elaborate on the question?
Yeah, so you said programming, and you recognize programming, right? That it's kind of having this effect, right? So in what way is this programming manifesting itself to you to where you're recognizing it as programming?
I think we're social creatures. We seek social...
I'm asking you personally.
Yeah. So I think I'm a social creature. I'm a human being. We seek social approval. And we kind of frame or logic check ourselves by interacting with others. And that's kind of how we check to make sure our behavior it conforms to some kind of objective sanity. And so when people say things to you or have expectations to you or react to you in certain ways, that's a form of both gatekeeping and pressuring in order to you to behave a certain way. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but I think it exists in almost all human interaction.
So you agree that there is two, you do understand the premise of there being two minds, right? The emotional mind and the rational, and like your rational mind. Like you recognize that there's two different entities.
I don't know if I can separate them logically.
No, but I mean the logical part is its own entity, right? And then there's the emotional response that could overcome your rational thought. Like what's his name was talking about getting super angry, right? And getting so mad that he makes dumb decisions, like he hadn't been arrested or whatever. But he said it affected his life, right? So that's an example of intense emotions overriding your rational thought. So when you talk about programming and you talk about behaviors, what I think you're talking about is emotion when it comes down to it. There are actions that happen socially with you that elicit these type of emotions that you utilize your rational thought to overcome because you are recognizing the emotion and you are, circumventing it. Like you said, like you're recognizing this programming, and what you're basically describing in so many words is you being emotionally intelligent and being self-aware. And
but I don't think that's the norm. So I'll give you like a specific example, which it's what made me say those words out loud to begin with, because I was thinking about it while I was talking, and it was what was mentioned on the panel. I'm told that isolation is bad for me, right? And I believed that for a long time. And
can you just, sorry to cut in, but who told you that?
Well, someone's already said it on the panel. I'm sure they heard it from a mental health professional. It's a widely held belief.
Yeah, it is.
And
that you shouldn't isolate when you're upset or depressed. You shouldn't isolate. Yeah,
right,
I think that. Mm-hmm.
And that may be true for a vast majority of people. I don't know. That's above my pay grade. But what I could tell you is, for me personally, I tried to adhere to that. I assumed it was true. And I hurt myself by following that programming. And rejecting it and taking time when I need it to be alone has not only been better for me, but it's better for the people that I have relationships with as well.
The people.
And did you have somebody guide you through that?
No.
So where did you learn? So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say, what about your relationships? Did you have a hard time with isolating when you were in a relationship?
No, I'm a communicator. When you talking about romantic relationships or relationships in general?
No. So romantic relationships. I'm sure, like a girlfriend might, be hard on you about something like that. I wonder.
No, I'm a communicator. So the irony of my romantic relationships is, probably other isolators are drawn to me, and then when I get in a relationship with somebody and there's a problem, I want to talk about it and work it out instead of withdrawing. And so, that's whether or not you withdraw or you communicate, one is not necessarily more successful or better than the other. The key is that both people have to be compatible. So if you're two people who go to your corners, that can actually work. And you don't really have to talk about anything, ironically enough.
Yeah.
The concept I was trying to describe when I was asking him these questions is I'm trying to get an idea of what his family crucible was like, because the impact of the early family environment is what kind of creates this programming of emotional intelligence to us. Because we're not born with this awareness of social protocols and things like that. These are things that we learn in our family crucibles at home. And what strategies I was curious about what strategies for fostering this emotional intelligence, because that's what he's talking about, is emotional intelligence that he experienced that taught him these things. Because when I asked if he was coached, go ahead.
I said, you also said there's two minds, which is kind of ridiculous. And it's we have one mind. Maybe there's a left hemisphere and a right hemisphere, but for you to say there's two minds, that's that's kind of it's hypocritical. It's ironic. It doesn't make any sense at all whatsoever.
Okay,
Your
well,
mind is your mind. It's
Yeah, well, we can explain that a little bit. Have you ever been at work and gotten upset at a coworker?
Yes, I wanted to pull him out of the truck and beat him into the ground.
Thank you, America. Perfect example. Perfect example.
Right.
So his emotional mind, because of this dumbass thing that his coworker did, made him have these intrusive thoughts about beating him to a pulp. Right? That happened. That instance, that fantasy happened in your mind. That is the emotional mind. That is it at play in that moment. But his rational mind, because he's self-disciplined and he understands the social dynamics at play of doing something like that and the repercussions of him assaulting another person, he was able to overcome that due to his emotional intelligence.
Hey, wait a minute. Maybe I did beat him. No, I'm kidding.
But I mean, like I said, at the end of the day, though, that's the emotional mind versus the rational mind in practice. We have these moments when we want to engage with people in a certain way.
Still one mind. Still your own mind.
Yeah, I think you might be.
It's still one mind.
You might be blockading.
He's going more on a psychological level where he's talking about that.
I mean, that's what we're talking about, psychology.
Right.
This is all going on in your head. This is all going on in your one mind.
How about this? How about if I said there's a duality to the nature of man? How about that?
The duality of man. So can you explain what you mean by that?
You know, the Jungian thing. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just wondering what Mr. Pi thinks about that.
Like what? There's two wolves and which one you got to feed? And like for example, earlier you said that we're social creatures. We need people, and you said you have to isolate. So that was, to me, I'm trying to wrap my head around why you need to isolate when you have admitted that we need people in our lives in general. And so
I don't know if I said need, but I think that like the normal human psychology, it does not take place all within the self. I think it's from an interaction with other human beings. We're kind of a social organism, whether you like it or not. And I just think, for me, the fact that isolation recharges me is a personality trait more than it is a rejection of my social nature as a human being.
Well, you're talking about genetic predisposition versus environmental influences, which is a fancy way of saying nature versus nurture. There are things.
Yeah, the thing is, I don't believe in the separation. I think they're in a constant feedback loop, and we put a ceiling to our understanding when we try to make them binary. And that's what I would say about the two minds thing too. I am never not emotional ever, and me personally, my personality type, I'm a logician, so I'm never not rational either.
Right. So you have a strong sense of emotional intelligence is what I'm kind of conveying in what I'm saying. But it's like when people hear the words emotional intelligence, they take it for like some type of like, you know, like, oh, I'm in tune with my emotion. When truly what it is you've mastered your rational mind over your emotional mind. I mean, that's the premise. That's the premise I'm discussing, and that's a real thing. You know,
yeah, that took a lifetime to develop, and I would never use the word master. You know what I mean?
Well, you haven't been around your entire life, and you seem to have gotten a pretty good grip. In America up there, who didn't beat the shit out of his coworker, is displaying a discipline and emotional intelligence and his ability not to do that. You know, there's social norms and things that you need to maintain. You know, for the fact that you don't want to go to prison, but there's 100,000, there's a million people in prison right now who don't have that capability.
Right.
They pulled that guy out of the truck. They beat the fuck out of him, and now they lost their job. They lost their kids, and now they're locked up in prison.
And so sometimes they're remorseful after the fact, and that blows my mind. You know what I'm saying? I have a hard time relating to those people.
I know somebody like that. That in the heat of the moment, his rational mind just goes out the window.
It's gone. Mm-hmm. It's gone, and there's a lot of things that affect that. And I know you guys were kind of alluding to it a little bit earlier. About there needs to be solutions to problems. There are some people who grow up in environments that there's no solution for them. There isn't. And some people are animals. You talk to any corrections officer who deals with inmates who are grown up in super high levels of poverty, in abusive homes, in not being able to get ahead, and abused by this person or that person, or
some of them are addicted to chaos.
It's all they know. It's all they know,
and that's what they feel comfortable in.
Yeah, and that's the only place for them is prison. That's because it's just they are just not built, and they did not develop the tools necessary for their rational minds to keep themselves in check, because their emotional minds run rampant, because the emotional mind is what has kept them safe mentally in their life, because they disassociate and they lash out and they let out that aggression. Right. So I believe that the two minds do exist. And the simple example that America gave is as simple as it gets for me, is that he had the inclination to beat the fuck out of his coworker, but he didn't do it. But there's a bunch of guys locked up in prison right now who did do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that's as clear as an example as I can give, that those two minds
very
exist.
Understandable.
Well, that's way different. You're saying emotional. I would disagree and say that to survive is instinctual. So people that don't have any ability, or they're in poverty and they can't even eat, so they have to steal or rob or do something irrational, the irrational mind that you're talking about, or emotional. I wouldn't call it emotional. I would call it instinctual to survive as humans. So it's still the same mind, as you have to survive as a human being. But to say that we're not capable of knowing rational thought, or no, I don't like the word rational. I would say the ability to choose a moral thought, or right or wrong, as opposed to an instinctual behavior to actually survive, from our amygdala. It's hey, I have to eat or I'm going to die, so I'm going to hurt somebody, and they can't be reformed, is bullshit.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think it's what you're talking about is kind of the examination of the evolutionary role of emotions in humans, where a lot of that is based on biology of the amygdala, the neocortex, those sectors of our brains that, the id, the ego, the superego, these filters that our thoughts go through. There is an evolutionary aspect to that survival aspect and decision making that went into our early development, and is still apparent in our lives now. When most people all grow up the exact same way. We go through the same kind of brain developments in terms of our oral fixations and growing up, us biting our hands or being chewy or things like that, sucking on our mama's titties when we're little kids to get milk. We all kind of develop in a very similar way. But it's all based off that evolutionary kind of survival and decision-making aspect of emotions. But when you take into account, the complexities of social life nowadays and the influences around us, the rational mind kind of had to take us to the forefront, because we don't need to worry about necessarily all the time about if we're going to survive the day because we didn't kill that deer in the forest or get those berries from the woods. So now we've grown to be a lot more self-aware, because in those times our entire existence revolved around survival. And nowadays we don't need to worry, because we can just go down to McDonald's, get a double cheeseburger with a 6-piece nugget and barbecue sauce, and I don't have to worry about eating that day. But we need to worry about.
I have time to contemplate my existential nature.
Exactly.
I think there's still some survival there. Having to sit here and keep a job and keep yourself alive and be able to have the money to go get that burger. Hunting and gathering, no, we don't have that, but there's still survival stuff. I think that you're dealing with that on a level.
This is the major cause of what we're calling anxiety and depression, in my opinion, is corporate employment. It's the replacement of the male experience with the 9-to-5 and this kind of
and the expectations
bottom line
that are placed on a man.
Well, I think those go hand in hand with one another.
I mean, a man's expected to be a provider. Bring home the bacon. The whole 9 yards. Where women, to a point, if they choose to be, that expectation isn't on them. You know, they can find a guy they can marry into, you know, a family and not have to work their entire life if they don't want to.
Honey, I know
You know,
plenty of women though that date guys that don't bring home the bacon. So it's, you know, I mean,
but
I would,
I'm just talking the
I know the
expectation in
expectations
general.
are difficult. I
I
know
would,
that
yeah,
has to be
and this
hard.
is,
Go ahead.
I would put money on, I'll put my money on everything that what's causing, if you want to do quotations on anxiety and depression in men, is lack of purpose. And what he said before, like we had to go do things, and maybe that is some kind of causation or correlation, like this 9 to 5 or whatever. Most men are lacking purpose and meaning. And if you don't have that in this kind of society, you will start to get anxiety because it's in our innate nature, it's in our instinct as a man to do things and provide and be the rock, be the stable and handle things. So if you don't have that, maybe that would cause anxiety in a man.
I can agree with this
It would
statement.
cause depression in a man. So
I think
maybe that's
sorry.
maybe that would go ahead.
I think anxiety is it's Eric, right?
I'm Eric, yes.
Eric, yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Mel.
Yeah, it's me.
No, there's a question on panel which I've highlighted. I disagree with it, but I'm going to ask the men because this is about you lot tonight. Would you say this accepted and embraced behavior of mental health leads to trauma bonding?
I don't understand the question.
Trauma bonding. Do you know what trauma bonding is?
Well, no, I understand that. I can't wrap my head around exactly what that means.
I would say absolutely. It's a bunch of people like bonding to like, hey, we're all weak. Let's be weak. I mean, like, why can't we figure out? I mean,
Oh my
it's
God.
like it's like an echo chamber of people that relate. Like, it's almost like the people you hang around with are representative of who you are. So if you're hanging out with a bunch of people that are highly motivated, disciplined, successful, expect a lot of each other, or if you're hanging around a bunch of losers, I've found this is from my own personal experience. This has happened to me when I'm hanging out with my other very highly, my friends that I expect a lot and do a lot and very disciplined, they will kind of push and motivate me more because that's just the energy that I'm around. If I'm hanging around a bunch of loser, like failures that are just kind of, or mediocre, I wouldn't say loser failures, just mediocre people. Hey man, laissez-faire, let's hang around, get along. No big deal, no sense of urgency to do anything in life. And you're all kind of there together complaining about it's a bunch of complaining, and you start to, it starts to affect who and what you are. So I would say the trauma bonding echo chamber is of, hey, we're all depressed, we all have anxiety, this is not good. You need to be around some people that say, well, get your ass up and do some shit.
Well, just to clarify, that's not what trauma bonding is. No. Trauma bonding is a dynamic between abusers and victims. The concept you're describing is a thing, but trauma bonding, and that's Mel to address the person who asked the question. It's typically referred to used incorrectly. Trauma bonding is about abusers and victims. We're talking about like husbands who beat their wives and their wives don't want to leave them, kind of shit.
Parents and children.
Yeah, parents and children. Yeah, it's kind of tossed around inappropriately and incorrectly. That like, oh well, you were sexually assaulted, I was sexually assaulted too, so we're trauma bonding over it. Like there's some type of thing that's related to that, but that's not what trauma bonding actually is.
Yeah,
that's why I wanted to address it, because I have to agree with Detox, because I was a bit confused.
Yeah, it's a, 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 it's a And
Yeah, it's about cycle of abuse, like intermittent reinforcement. Like, when, the husband will beat the shit out of you, but he'll also be really kind and call you his baby and the love of his life and bring you flowers and buy you gifts.
Love bombing.
Yeah, and then beat the shit out of you again. Like it's a power and control dynamic thing. There's cognitive dissonance because women who are typically the victims of an abusive relationships will say that there's nothing wrong. Like it'll conflict with the harmful behavior, them being nice to them. Like it's not. It's just. It's like.
I think there's more than that, though.
No,
a lot of these women.
It's a generic term. It's you can trauma bond about anything, about any trauma in your life. So what's relevant? That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Frye, I do think though, didn't you say that you were happy 90% of the time? And like that, so if you're happy 90% of the time, I don't think that you are able to understand what some of these men are going through necessarily. And I think like some of the comments that you're making seem you seem a little insensitive.
It's a little privileged, yeah. But I mean, good for him though. I'm glad he's not depressed.
Yeah, I'm glad you're not depressed either.
Someone who's been able to manage their mental health and emotions successfully is probably better to talk about those sorts of situations than someone who's failed to.
Bingo.
So,
I mean, it depends on your definition of managing and success, I think.
Right.
I mean, then would you say then, Crab, that people learn more from their victories than their failures?
No, you learn from your failures, but if you're continually making failures to the point that you can't escape failures, then you're not learning.
But what about people who
I think if you're not failing, you're not learning.
Yeah, and I think it's when
if you're not failing, you're not learning. If you're the type of person that thinks life isn't challenging, you're not challenging yourself.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of projection and the get up and do something type of mentality that comes from people who have not suffered.
Yeah, but if you think someone who's happy 90% of the time is happy because they haven't failed, then you just don't know life.
No, I just think they're not happy 90% of the time. It's the story that they tell themselves in order to project confidence.
Yeah. I don't want anyone to feel badly about what they're sharing because, I don't want anyone to feel bad or to feel uncomfortable about what they're sharing.
Yeah, what we're calling anxiety is a stressor response too, right? That's what I was saying earlier. Like Eric mentioned, it's kind of just another word for stress, and that's really what it is. So you can.
I don't want to offend anyone.
Experience anxiety simply from stimulation. Just having too much stress put on a person, or a person who doesn't confront their anxiety or their fear or their depression and just kind of pushes to go along, can find themselves looking back at an empty hole when it comes to their ability to deal with stress.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if it makes everyone not feel so insensitive, the 10% that I haven't felt that good about myself has come in like the last literally year. So 90% of my life up until this point, I'm very non-anxiety, not depressed. And the last year has been the only point in my life where I've felt I don't even like to use the word, and I'm fighting it to do that as a man. So that's why I joined the panel, is because I'm fighting the urge to even say the word, because in my being, I don't want to feel that because it's going to manifest. I am struggling in certain ways. As a man, I'm going to persevere, find a solution, do something more. Most of my life has been pretty stress, depressed, and anxiety free. The last year has been very much a struggle for me personally. So when I say 90%, that sounds privileged, but it's all relative to where I am in this state of my life. But so I'm going to have to figure it out from here on out. But I wouldn't want to label myself as that, depressed, or
you don't want to say the word depressed,
filled with anxiety.
Yeah, this is kind of to piggyback on what Crowd was kind of alluding to. He's not it's hard to have conversations like this without offending people, because that's why when I was talking to the gentleman on the top right with the Andy Dufresne
Denizen.
Demizens are earlier. I was trying to elicit him to use I statements as opposed to we statements, because I feel like people can be a little bit more genuine when they use I statements, because they could talk a little bit about their personal experiences as opposed to like we and speaking in generalities. Because I think the thing about mental health is a lot of people approach it in a lot of different ways, and there are a lot of different strategies. I won't say solutions, I'll say strategies to address these things and manage these things. People go to the gym, people cook, people invest themselves deeply in their work or their families or religion to sort of to strategize, to dictate and to manage these emotions when they do come up. So it's good that you're creating the space, but I mean, no matter what, I mean, it's going to be tough for some people to not be offended sometimes, because it's their own strategies and approaching things and how they've dealt with it sometimes the majority of their lives.
I'm trying that I versus we stuff too. That's my one of my New Year's resolutions. It's a good point, I think.
Yeah, it's a very good point.
Eric, you put your hand up. Did you want to chime in?
Well, I was just kind of curious. Detox seems to have a lot of opinions and a lot of things he's saying about, this topic. And I'm just kind of curious, where is your background from this? I'm just curious,
Sure.
Do you have a medical background? Did you take psychology courses? I mean, where are you coming from? I'm not saying I don't like a lot of what you're saying. I understand what you're saying. I'm just curious where you're coming from.
Yeah, for sure. So I got my undergraduate degree in psychology. I worked really closely with the Air Force and a professor on campus to distribute surveys for job description and human resources, which is an analysis of, performance in the workplace. So that's kind of like where the survey background I have in. I've gotten my mental health certification, mental health for state certifications renewed consistently for the last few years. I've also worked in a counseling center for 2 years, where I worked with a lot of pre-doctoral, postdoctoral interns and master's practicum trainees who are training to be psychologists. As part of the APA board, its selection process, they have to get clinical hours just like doctors do. My direct supervisor was a licensed psychologist. I've been an active participant in therapy previously myself. And, I work with a lot of younger people who are in the prime of their emotional development.
I've got a question for you, Detox.
Sure, buddy.
Has suicide rates gone up or down since men started to be told that they should talk about their emotions and go to therapy?
The only suicide statistics I've looked at recently was during the COVID period. There was a massive spike up in Seattle where they saw an increase of about 14% in suicide rates. I mean, Seattle's always had a pretty bad suicide rate just because the weather is terrible. But I mean, they saw a significant spike, and a lot of it had to do with, the isolation aspect. A great anecdote that I'd like to use. Oh, what's up, America? Sorry, did you want something real quick?
Oh, no. I was just putting my finger up because when you were done, I just wanted to ask you.
Oh, sure.
I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, do your thing, Doug.
I was going to ask. Now, have you personally ever had to deal with depression? Thank you.
No, like I said, I mean, we're talking about privilege. I've been fortunate enough to not really have experienced, I think, a lot of depression. I've definitely had anxiety issues before. It was kind of a slow process. I think a lot of my anxiety came from the family, the home thing. There was a lot of abuse in my younger life, not to me physically, but I witnessed a lot of it. And I think, I was bullied a lot in high school. I had experienced a lot of things like that. When I was in college, I was the victim of quite a few assaults and things of that nature. Had some bad run-ins with police officers that kind of contributed to my social anxiety. I've gotten a lot better at kind of managing it up until this point. But I couldn't say for, aside, I definitely haven't felt any depression. I've definitely been sad a time or two, but I wouldn't say full-blown depression. I've never been diagnosed.
Okay. I was just curious.
Sure.
So would you agree or not? Would you agree or not that everything that... Or go ahead. Sorry, Mel.
No, I was going to ask, because Domenico's popped up here and he hasn't spoken yet. I know that he wanted to talk about... Sorry, Mr. Pye, for interrupting. He wanted to talk about the correlation between eating and depression. Domenico, you there, darling?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Did you want to talk to us about that?
Oh, yeah, it was just basically on diets, not just necessarily foods. the emotional diet, the mental diet. Most people are unaware that there is cycles, and most people probably aren't developed. So whether it's the first 7 years on your physical development, and again, you have to factor in when you're talking physical, your blood type. Most men eat foods that are probably not healthy for their bodies. Whether you're an O blood type or A blood type or AB, whatever blood type you may be. Our environment, such as introducing certain frequencies in the environment, plays a role on our bodies and also on our mental and emotional bodies. I know people don't want to really discuss that because they think it's all one. Same with the mind. You're using the mind. You're in the mind. Your receiver is the brain. And then you also have a midbrain. So once you become aware of some of those things, then you can realize, am I actually putting more undue stress on the vessel, whether physically, emotionally, or mentally? Energy and motion. We're affected by all the energies around us, whether it's air, wind, the solars. This is where people study things like different days have different energies. Anyway.
Yeah, can I add to that real quick?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's a really good point. I think much like the nature-nurture thing, we do ourselves a disservice to separate our health, our mental health, and our physical health. They're
just like
intertwined.
Exercise can help you as well.
It's gotten to the point. Go ahead, man.
Sorry, Dennis. And anyone suffering with depression, which I have done before, and I found that actually I was drinking more, which is detrimental to not only my health but the depression itself. Have you men found that during times of depression you're abusing your body even more?
Yeah, I think it's an impulse thing, Mel, especially when it comes to drugs and alcohol. It's poor impulse control. People typically will manifest, addictions because they haven't been able to properly use their emotions to respond to situations appropriately. And we kind of will retreat to things that feel familiar and comfortable to us because there's associations with those instances and feeling good and feeling positive. And yeah, there you go. I mean, I'm addicted to nicotine. I'd show you my vape if I had it in front of me. So, it's something that we can retreat to. But it's really about, I think, impulse and as far as its connections to eating, like it's, people find a lot of comfort in eating. I think when people get, more emotional eaters, right, is because they use it to relieve their stress because they find a lot of comfort in food. And unfortunately, the foods that comfort us the most are the ones that are usually the worst for us. It's great to go to a steak dinner.
Sometimes when you're depressed, you have a hard time like getting out and exercising or wanting to even you don't have the motivation, right, to exercise.
Mr. Frye, sorry. Yeah. You put your hand up, darling. What did you want to say? You put your hand up, right?
Yeah, I know. Not to be insensitive, but I mean, to me, this is just all common sense. Like, you put good things in your body, you feel better. Okay, well, you eat right, you feel better. You put toxins in your body, you feel like shit. I mean, this is not like some kind of profound like thing. Like,
but where I was going this high, awesome. I mean, I was going like, how can we? Because having suffered with both depression and anxiety, like I know that I comfort eat, and I know what I'm doing and I also drink too much. Knowing I'm doing all those bad things, I can't stop. So, Mr. Frye, I'm just trying to say, like, how can we get past that bit where we're in this hole, we're comfort eating, we're doing, party favors, we're drinking too much, how can we help people who are in that position to come out? And it's very easy to say, yeah, exercise, eat healthy.
You need motivation to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but there's evidence in the medical literature. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Go ahead. The evidence. Go ahead.
There's evidence of curing depression in the medical literature with probiotics.
With probiotics, is that what you said?
Yeah, you can have. Yeah, you could have the wrong balance of bacteria that makes you unable to get out of bed, depressed, sad, existential, and simply taking a probiotic can completely change your life.
I wouldn't say depression is depression would be like a side effect of low motivation, low energy, low ability to have purpose. It'd
would
be
have
Well,
said
I mean,
I
when
agree
it,
with
don't
that
separate
statement.
those things from your physicality is what I'm warning against. That's exactly what I'm warning against.
well, there is neuroscience that shows that, you know, when we're talking about depression, there are protein receptors in our neurotransmitters of our brain that are either overstimulated or not receiving enough of these positive breaks in them that will block a lot of these different chemicals entering the brain. And depression depression is linked to biology in the brain. And when people take medications, let's just say, what is it? That fucking depression med that everyone takes, fucking Prozac or whatever.
Prozac, yeah.
You know, it increases those proteins in the brain, so your brain isn't flooded with these transmissions overly. So it kind of
Eat
helps
some magic
mitigate
mushrooms,
it.
everybody.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about the effects of ecstasy on people suffering from PTSD.
It will
Yeah.
break the synapses up, dude.
Microdoses.
Yeah,
I want to
definitely-
second
it
Mr.
changes.
Pye's recommendation.
Yeah, there's definitely been, you know, science.
There's a lot of
supporting
research
it.
It
that's
will
being
break
done
your
on this.
reality.
But yeah, I mean, you know, a healthy diet is good.
Break the matrix.
Seek the guidance of a shaman, though. You know, if you're a noob, don't dive into psychedelics. Seek guidance.
Yeah, it's micro doses of that stuff, and it's you know, it's I guess it's experimental at this point. I don't think there's been enough research or long enough research for it to know everything, but you know, I think they've had good results on it so far.
I've got another question for the panel. If things aren't going well, do you have difficulty concentrating? And when challenged, do you lose your temper easily?
I mean, it affects my ability to concentrate. So, whether or not I can still do that, I am definitely affected. And I would say, comparatively speaking, I'm pretty good at being challenged without losing my patience.
My mood, in my case, it's just everything annoys me. You know, I become more hypersensitive to people that just don't use common sense, that don't have common sense. Just things just irritate and grind against me more when I'm in that kind of state.
Except
Anger
there is no
motivates
common sense. That's one of my coping mechanisms.
If something pisses me off, I become more motivated. I'll work twice as hard at work if I'm in a bad mood. If I'm at home and the yard work needs to be done and something puts me in a bad mood, it's getting done.
What if you're afraid?
Afraid of what?
Yeah.
Like
anything.
I'll let you know when I get there.
Are you married?
Huh?
Are you married?
No, I've never been married. Why?
Are you in a
What would you-
long-term relationship?
Yeah. 13 years, 2 kids.
Hell,
Yeah.
there you go. Hell yeah.
Time, yeah.
So if you were at work and you received an emergency phone call that your wife was at the hospital and there was no other information, would you be afraid?
Yeah, but it wouldn't stop me from doing what I needed to do. I'd just leave work.
Could it affect your ability to concentrate?
No.
Okay,
Because I'd
interesting.
be focused on the problem, and the problem at hand was me getting from work to where I needed to be.
Well, that wasn't really the question, but I'll take your answer.
Just 1 second. I just wanted to let you guys know, in case you were going to direct something to me, I'm going to go downstairs for a minute. So
right.
I will be here.
Okay.
So can I share something, guys? There's ways to aid some of that stuff. So concentration, different types of music. Again, plays roles. Baroque music will play a role in all of that. So again, we've introduced different frequencies. This is why when people introduce things like singing bowls for themselves, or when people play with crystals, energies and all that, it can actually aid the vessel. Unfortunately, a lot of people think they are the vessel, but then you have to ask questions like, who's running it right now? Who's running the liquids right now in your vessel? Who runs it when you're asleep? Again, this is where most people, they don't realize it disturbs them. So what is the senses? The senses is when you're in the waking state. That's all that is. And all senses could easily be misled. So for a lot of men, they don't tune into that unless you're a shaman or a mystic, or you have to learn the hard knocks of experience. That might take 30, 40, 70 years.
Elaborate on what you're saying men don't tap into. Can you?
What did you get from that?
I'm wondering what it is exactly that you mean when you say that? Tapping into what?
Tapping into your inner core, your essence.
Yeah, can you elaborate on that?
Did you
And
say
a
that?
lot of
What
this
you mean by that?
elaboration. What are
Say
you
again.
getting from that? What are you getting from it? Because I get you're asking a question. This question should have been asked within oneself. I'm the kind of person I'll share out loud. You can hear me, but listen from within. I get you want somebody to elaborate, but I'm not here to do your homework. I will share
Oh, Jesus
how
Christ.
you perceive it. Okay, well, Jesus is here. Okay, guys, I'll just mute myself.
No, you're okay.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
No.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead, please.
Again, we're talking about energy, your being, the physical aspect. Again, when you're in your waking state, that's where you use your imagination. This is where a lot of people use, they're scholarly. They use their upper hemisphere. Women are preset with their midgut. So now when you start eating fermenting foods, for example, that can help the midgut. Most of us eat incorrectly. So we go to the grocery store, we eat foods that are probably unhealthy for us, probably prematurely picked. When people are into animal foods, are they domestic? Are they wild? What seasons are you eating them? This is all scientific. You just have to gather all that information and hopefully have some discernment. How does this serve you at any given moment? Anyway.
So can I ask, Domenico, if somebody, and obviously we've had a couple of people in chat mention this, if somebody is suffering with depression and they get into the bad habit of self-medicating with alcohol, with the knowledge that you have with the food, etc., in the diets and what have you, how does one stop self-medicating with alcohol? Because it's not as easy as it's said, right?
With alcohol, the emotion that's attached to it, hence why we have the word recovery, is anger. Smoking is usually grieving. So there's always an emotion attached to one of these devices.
Depending on how much of an alcoholic you are, it could be life-threatening for you to stop drinking. So,
Now you're talking about the physical, the liver and all that, but I'm talking about the energy called the emotions. We don't see anger. We just actually express it.
I was just going to say you might want to seek professional help, depending.
Can I ask you a
Who's
question?
this?
You said earlier, this is Mr. Pie.
Thanks.
You said it could take a man up to 70 years to figure out his inner self or what he is and being in this life.
Now, some people they become wise based on their experience. So they become a diabetic.
Well, I mean,
well, it can be, but some people can.
Okay, yeah. So I'm just trying to figure that out because you said earlier is that it may take up to 70 years to even figure who and what you are, basically.
Yeah.
Which most men will be dead by then. So, what the hell's the point?
Well, it's not just about a point, but if you think there's a point to it, Pete, go for it. Again, now you're talking about the experiencer opposed to the observer. Most people are going to get caught up in the experience, but then what are you really experiencing? Are you experiencing thoughts, or you just experiencing the material plane?
What was the last thing you said, or what?
Or the material plane opposed to the spiritual plane. In this case, what you're experiencing. Am I experiencing the words that I speak with others, or am I actually experiencing the material aspect of it? This is where you become the experiencer opposed to the observer, or vice versa.
What's the difference?
Once you become aware of that, then you'll know. It could be a bit of both. Yeah, we always are observing in a lot of ways, but are we observing inwards or outwards? Are we using the eye of the beholder, or are we just basically observing everything that goes through our senses?
Okay, what is it to you? What's the difference to you?
I'm an observer for more times than not. I'm observing from within. So now I might share things that are very insightful, intuitive, where other people might share things very scholarly. So they take everything through reading, for example, what it does to the hemispheres.
Mm-hmm.
But I can do that too. We all can do it in many ways. But again, for some people, it can cause them grief. Hence why they'll get anxiety about it. It might not be their skill set to do that. Men will go to work, but they might not be happy at their job, and they don't know enough to hear themselves from within. So how are they going to hear others?
Right.
I think we should ask ourselves. Sorry, go ahead, man.
No. Go ahead, darling. Go ahead.
I think we should ask ourselves, what is it about society or the male experience that is causing so many men to experience anxiety?
Right.
Expectations. Men not allowed to be men anymore in the ways that they were.
I was
Lack
just
of
going to say
ability to
that.
find new ways to be men in healthy ways. Pressure to express our emotions more like women do instead of the way men need to. Men are getting left behind in all areas.
Well, hey, thanks.
Emotional intelligence, schooling, education, workplace.
I'm gonna drop
I agree.
out, Mel.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Who's that?
Mr. Pie.
Oh, Eric.
Mr.
Okay.
Pie.
This is Mr.
No,
Pie.
Mr.
Oh,
Pie.
Mr. Pie. Okay, sorry, Mr. Pie. Thank you for coming up, my love.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would say, this has drained my energy more than helped it. So there's an answer for the panel.
I don't think that's very helpful, though, Mr. Pie.
Did we add a percent by?
He's gone.
Look, I wanted to create a space where we could all talk about it and feel comfortable with each other and say it's all right. You know, there's no shame anyway. I don't want anyone to feel anything other than thank you for sharing and all that. So I wanted people, because look, there's lots of people struggling right now, and I understand the pressures on men, and I wanted to have a safe panel and chat. The chat's been incredible, you know. Not that I'm saying the panel isn't. I'm just saying I wanted to be able to say it's okay. You can come here, and if you want to reach out and ask questions to anybody who's either dealt with it or is dealing with it, please do.
Yeah, I personally, I don't want to offend anyone, but personally, I think like a trauma dump isn't constructive. Like, I don't know. That's just me, but I think it'll be more constructive if people approach problems as the individual problem instead of like a life story trauma dump.
What do you mean?
Has there been any trauma dumping? Sorry.
No. When I was earlier, I was listening to like individual, this like I don't know, sad stories. I guess I'm pretty.
Did it make you uncomfortable, Crab?
No. I don't get uncomfortable. I'm
with Crab on the emotional dumping stuff. Some people misconstrue emotional dumping for vulnerability, and they're not mutually exclusive. Like there's a big difference between sharing a genuine moment of intimacy with another person and sharing a personal experience that affected you in a major way with somebody who has been earned that type of respect and trust than going into a room full of strangers. Like, you ever go into the bar and you have that guy who comes in and tells you his life story about all these terrible things that happened to him? It's like it's a very unhealthy way of it's like the guise of vulnerability, when in reality it's a way to push people out even more, in my opinion. Because what do most people do to that person when they're in the bar telling you all this shit? They're just like, yeah, man, you know, I'm just kind of here to have a good time and have a drink. Like, appreciate you sharing, but you know, it's kind of a vibe killer.
But do you think that's happened on this panel at all?
I don't agree with
I was just speaking in general.
Yeah,
is that a no?
Mudcrab's point. I didn't hear what he said on his way out. I stopped listening.
Mudcrab says he heard it on the panel earlier.
I've heard a couple of. I'm not going to single anyone out. I'm not going to say names, but I did hear a couple of stories before when I was in the chat.
But isn't this me proving my point that men are harsher on men, and then say it's expectations from women? But what I'm hearing is men are harsh on men.
Yeah, say that's a female ideal that he's upholding, though. That men aren't allowed to have their feelings or express them in public. That talking about them makes them like women.
No, I think I don't think there's anything wrong with discussing your emotions, but when you are being vulnerable with somebody who hasn't earned or that trust and that intimacy with you, it's not the same thing. It's not the same thing. I don't believe those to be the same things. I think it's unhealthy and actually has an adverse effect and kind of pushes people more away.
How can we possibly have any public conversations about these topics then without it being trauma dumping?
Well, again, so when we're talking about I statements and giving examples right that, like you could tell me about an experience you had and talk about the emotions involved in them, but you don't need to tell me about your father that you walked in on who had beaten your mom to a bloody pulp or something like that, and it turned into a drug addict, and then you know what I mean? Like there's ways to address these type of things without like emotionally dumping on people to the point where they don't want to be receptive to the conversation. And what I was alluding at to earlier with Mel, what's so hard about having conversations like this is because when you get someone talking about emotion, when people try to pull examples, most of the time they're reverting to examples of their own personal being, at least is when it should be. And that can sometimes lead people down the mental road to start revisiting a lot of these emotions that they haven't addressed in a long time, which kind of elicits these trauma dumps, right? And it's a little tough to manage if you're not trained to respond to those things appropriately, because if somebody dumps on you and you don't respond in an appropriate way that they deem is acceptable to them, then it's going to frustrate them and give them more anxiety and could even prevent them from seeking any sort of constructive guidance or coaching or assistance in the future as a result of it.
I agree with that last statement, but some of the things that you're saying as being a person that has suffered through some depression, you know, I can't agree with everything you said. That last couple of statements you made, okay, I agree with that. But, you know, I understand if I walked into a bar and I just started blabbing to everybody, they're not here for that purpose, you know, but this is specifically titled for what it is. So I'm not just dumping on random people.
Right.
They came in here knowing exactly what the topic was going to be about, you know, and honestly, you know, I do feel better. I mean, I am in a better place, but you know, it does feel good to kind of talk about it. And she did, you know, and Mel did ask questions about, you know, things that, you know, people did to try to get out of the depression they were in. And that in itself may help somebody else down the road. So in this situation, I don't think what your bar example really applies.
Could I reiterate on what I was saying, just so maybe people can hear it better? I was saying it's not constructive to trauma dump. That wasn't saying don't speak on your trauma. All I was saying is that it's more constructive if you've got it, like speak on your trauma, and like if you've had a solution for it, like how you worked through it, how you got through it, what you did to improve your situation. That's 100% constructive. But if it's just like, this is the bad things that have happened to me and I feel bad and no one here can really help me, then it's not, I don't see that it's not constructive. And I'm not criticizing anyone. I'm just saying, like, it's more constructive if you have a problem and you can speak on the solution you had.
What if you're looking for solutions?
Yeah, well, that's cool too.
Sorry, Eric, what were you about to say?
See, for me, I've got a very strong drive when I make up my mind about something. You know, I decided that a lot of it was I decided I just didn't want to be depressed anymore. You know, I hated the way my life was going. I hated the idea that I was thinking the way I was thinking. So I just purposely started making changes. You know, I decided, okay, I'm going to eat better. I'm going to lose weight. You know, all the problems that, you know, I would get rid of the gray hair, you know, get out, try to meet people. You know, I consciously made those decisions and then just forced myself to do it, you know, kind of fake it till you make it type thing, I guess.
Right. I just said that
is one
last
way to
night.
put it, you know.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I think I might have I might have tuned out for a portion of what Mud was saying, but he reiterated it later. Like, yeah, this is there's a like a level of consent happening and listener readiness in this space, the space of this conversation. So yeah, I'm sorry. I was speaking in general. I wasn't trying to make.
Yeah, you're speaking about when everybody's having a great time and somebody comes in and.
Oh yeah, it's a downer.
Yeah. I mean,
Argument.
right. Like this, like, I don't think like everybody here is consented to this being a space where people can kind of share those things. There's a level of readiness. Like I said, I think I was speaking in generality in terms of like the
No, and
context
we're
of this
certainly
Vast
not.
conversation.
majority.
We certainly are
Vast.
not professionals or know what we're just asking you to speak on your experience and to feel comfortable with doing so. I applaud everybody that's come up and said something. It's really I'm surprised by how many of you that were willing to speak on it. It's I can't believe how many. So it's really surprising.
Yeah, and I think there's a
Applaud
level of
that.
shame. Yeah, I think there's a level of shame resilience being built too by people coming here and sharing their stories, and they are becoming stronger as a result of it. But that lethargic feeling you're getting, guys, like if you go to therapy, you could get that once a week or regularly.
Right.
I'm just
I
saying.
know.
I'm just
I think
saying.
that too.
And then you could really let it rip and those behind those closed doors, dude.
Yeah, and they will have things to say and things to do and exercises to do that will help you in therapy that we're not equipped to suggest even. But
Yeah.
I was gonna say that one thing that I've always done is I have always done this forever and ever, and it helps me is that well, like what I do is I call bingo out for like a senior citizen home like every other Sunday, and I've done that since I was a young girl. But I mean, it helps me when you volunteer to help somebody else. Sometimes it gets you out of your own head. You meet a lot of people doing that. I think it's a great way to meet people, in fact. And it kind of gets you out of your own head. As well. Thanksgiving, on Thanksgiving I bring my kids to that my kids have served the homeless since they were little. So on Thanksgiving, and it's just a good way to you'll meet a lot of people, and also it makes you feel good. It really does. It makes you feel good to do something for others, and it helps you, in my opinion.
No, you're right, Christopher, because when I looked after the lady with Alzheimer's last week for my cousin,
Yes.
I really wasn't. I thought, oh, I can't be bothered to do this. I'm having my own shit. I got my own problems. But actually, spending time with her made me humble.
Yes, it does.
It
It
made
humbles
me
you.
humble and in thinking, Mel, you're down this spiral with your mental health. And this lady, she's got her own problems. She forgets sentences halfway, but she's coping really well.
Yeah.
And she's still really happy. So you're absolutely spot on with that, guys.
Yeah, you'll meet people that will just touch your heart, and just
Right.
in so many ways. And it does, right, Mo? Made you feel better?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It made me feel a lot, and it really humbled me. Now I know it's maybe a little bit trickier for men. Go ahead, Eric.
I just wanted to sit here and say I got to go to bed. It was great being up here. I mean, there was a little bit more I wanted to talk about, but I've just kind of run out of time. So
Oh,
Well,
Eric,
it was
can you
nice
not give
seeing you
us?
guys again.
Can you not
can you
give
give
us
us
five
just a few
minutes
more
now?
minutes?
No, I got to get my butt to bed. I was actually only going to stay on until 2 my time, which would have been an hour for you guys, and it's already now 3, and you started at 1 for me, so I'm already way past the time that I got to go. So, um, I appreciate you guys doing this. I enjoyed being up here. Hopefully it does help somebody. And
Congratulations,
nice seeing
sir.
you guys
Hey,
all
Eric.
again.
Good
Eric,
Yeah.
talking to you, Eric.
Eric,
Thank
Keep your
you,
head up,
Eric.
brother.
Thank
Jeff.
you.
Have a good morning.
Good night,
What?
Eric.
Jeff has a channel for where he's got a mental health channel for men.
Yeah.
If you I'll put it in the chat.
Okay.
Okay. And then
All right.
please come back again, okay?
Yeah.
It's so nice to talk to you.
I mean, the
Yeah.
hard thing is that normally you guys being overseas start at 1 a.m. for me, and I wake up at 6:15 every morning.
Right.
So luckily tomorrow I have a rain day, but I'm on call, so I may end up having to work. I don't know. So I risked it. I risked it a little bit because I saw
Yeah.
I saw that you guys were going live, and I saw the topic, and I was like, okay, because I did touch on a little bit on when I was first talking about how top of the world, and then today I was just crap. So I mean, I was going to talk about that, but I really don't have time to dig into it right now. So, all right, you guys have a great night, and I'll listen for a
Have
little
a
bit.
good sleep, Eric, and thank you for coming up and talking to us.
Yes.
Not a problem.
Yeah,
Stop
good talking
back
to
again, Eric.
You guys take care.
Yes.
See you, man.
Good night.
Peace.
I think people need more purpose.
Yeah, but Crab, like, how do we like? Yes, we need more purpose, but when you're in a spiral, you lose the the interest in everything, don't you? When you're like you just lose interest. How does one motivate oneself to go and do what you do that?
So I don't think I've ever had depression. I've always had a pretty strong foundation of identity, understanding myself and purpose, and I make sure my purpose is things that can't be taken away from me. Like I'll go from bodybuilding to guitar to art to music. Like I'll do different things that are part of me, is who I am.
Daisy.
Yeah, and it's things that I know I'll find enjoyment in every time. Like I'll step away from guitar for 6 months, but I'll pick it up and I'll know I'll enjoy it just as much as I did the last time I had it.
Okay, well, let me give you an example. Like pre-C, I exercised 6 days a week because I loved it, right? Then big C happened, put on weight. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety 3 years in a row. And the one thing that I loved all my adult life was exercising, and I can't find a motivation for it. So I understand what you're saying, find something that you love, but how does one push themselves to motivate themselves?
So you weren't able to exercise anymore because you couldn't leave home?
No, I just lost all interest because that's when I was diagnosed. I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety about 6 months into the big C. So I just stopped exercising because all I wanted to do was lie down and
so you stopped exercising because of the depression and not the other way around.
So
well, why did you get depression? Like, do you know what caused it? What the catalyst was?
I think some people are and this is why I'm happy to talk about mine if it helps anyone, like with the men, right? So I've been prone to depression since my early 20s and anxiety on and off, right? I've always fixed myself somehow. Without medication. I tried medication once, didn't work for me. Thought I'd never do that again. It's difficult to know how I can pinpoint to one particular thing that's helped me out of it because I don't know what that thing is. So anyone suffering with depression and anxiety, I can't say to them, oh yeah, find that one singular thing that will make you happy again, because I don't understand what that is. That's what I'm trying to say to you, Crab. For those who are, especially with men who are very proud and they don't talk about it, because I can talk about mine, how do we motivate ourselves to find that one thing that we enjoy that will help us, whether it be diet, exercise, I don't know, fishing, whatever it is,
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't speak on how to get out of depression. But I do think prevention is the best.
I have a friend in here that asked if anyone has been to war.
What was that, Crispy?
I have a friend in here that asked in chat if anyone has been to war. Has been to war.
Would you have PTSD?
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Right.
I had a buddy who was in the military, but he said that was nothing compared to when he got shot out in Vegas during that massacre a couple of years back.
So with PTSD, I've got a friend of mine who's suffering with PTSD right currently as we speak, a good channel friend. And this one's a tricky one because with PTSD, I do think that professional intervention is key. Now, I'm sure that in the US, there's charities that help out if you can't afford a psychiatrist. But with PTSD, and I'm not an expert on PTSD, I'm just, having my experience with my friend, I do feel that it needs to be professionally treated. Panel, would you agree, disagree?
Yeah, I would just say don't be discouraged. The medical health system out here in the United States is abysmal. And so you kind of have to teach yourself how to find the right professional. And it may take some trial and error, and there may be some failure.
Yeah.
But the right person, the right professional is out there for you.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a major cultural component to it as well. There's a lot of first generation folks who are, getting out of their immigrant families' homes and are talking to doctors and therapists who don't understand their culture and their traditions. And it is a major hurdle for them to find somebody who can understand their situation. Yeah. And I mean, I hate to say it, but you're going to be on a wait list most of the time because there's a serious deficit of therapists in this country or the United States. And the wait lists are long for good therapists. It's like a good tattoo artist. You got to pay and you got to wait. Yep. So most of the time, like the first therapist I had was somebody who worked with people who were forced to go due to court orders. And, I was, it wasn't a good fit for me. And it really soured my vision of therapy for a long time. But, luckily my boss kind of encouraged me to continue to find someone who worked for me, who could understand my unique situation. And it made all the difference in the world. But it was years. It was years before I found somebody who I felt like I connected with. So that's a big part of it.
Don't forget about the people that you love and that you trust. Everything's different for everyone, but if you're the type of person that wants that seeks external validation, or is confused about a problem and feels like they need help, you can ask people that you trust. Because I would suggest that if you can't ask a person that you trust about these things, then they're not a person that you can trust.
Sorry, just quickly, Pale Horse was said, did he get shot or was he just there? Detox.
He was just there, but his brother was hit. But he took one in the arm and had a $300,000 medical bill.
Can I ask though? Like in England, there's quite a lot of free help. I mean, I know we've got the NHS, that's different. But I was under the impression last time we did a mental health panel that there are charities that can help.
Like with the cost or provide professionals?
Well, no, to provide professionals for free.
Yeah, I mean, there are, but typically those people who do those type of hours, they will be at an institution like that. Let's just say it's a church doing it. They'll reserve an office for that person to be there, and that person gets paid to be there by the church. But their hours will be extremely limited, and they'll only be able to take so many appointments in the time that they're there. And therapists typically don't book themselves. I mean, private practice is different, but if you're in a care facility like that and doing it part-time, it typically won't book more than 4 clients back to back if they're 1-hour sessions, because you got to think about the therapist's well-being at that point.
And is there any other groups where you can get, wasn't there like mental health crisis lines? Do they provide, are they counselors or are they psychiatrists?
A lot of mainstream medical insurance providers push people to group therapy, for lack of a better term, to group sessions and literature and videos and things of that nature. Like if you're suffering from, alcoholism or things like that, or maybe you have cancer or whatever, they'll push you to like group stuff less than they'll do individual stuff, because usually the individual stuff is really expensive on them. So medical insurance companies aren't motivated to want to pay that kind of stuff. And often the people who work for the larger insurance companies or accept those larger insurance whatever they call them. I'm really well versed in that. The quality of the therapist there isn't always up to snuff. I mean, it's like lawyers, there's crummy lawyers and there's good lawyers, and there's crummy therapists and there's good therapists. And unfortunately, then sometimes those people, you're not getting the best quality people.
Hey, Eric, I know you wanted to tell me something, sweetheart. Eric? Okay.
Is he not there?
So yeah, the resources are there. There's definitely like options for mental health services for people who have low income and don't have ready access to them. But then you also have to take into account the socioeconomic status of that individual, if they can even make it to a session where like, oh yeah, here are all these free services, but you have to take a 2-hour bus ride to get there. And it's at 8:00 in the morning. So I hope you can make your appointment. And if you don't make, and if you no show an appointment with someone like that, their tolerance is low for that kind of stuff. And they're like, oh, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, we had to give your slot to somebody else. And now our slots are full and you can't see them. So
Eric changed his name to Leave Me in the Back.
Leave me in the back. Okay, my bad.
Are men's groups much of a thing overseas?
Detox? Men's group?
Oh, I'm sorry. Were you? I'm sorry. I forgot. I thought he was meant you overseas or me overseas.
Yeah.
One more time, I'm sorry.
Are men's groups much of a thing over in the States or in England?
Yeah. I would say in the States, there's plenty of NA, SA, AA places for people to kind of get together and talk about stuff in a group setting.
Oh, okay. So they're like an AA or sort of meeting, but for men.
Yeah, NA. Like, are you talking about like just like Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous?
He's just talking about like mental health.
Okay, so like here in Australia, we have like things called like Men's Shed, and it'll be like a shed somewhere that someone set up at their own property or house or whatever, and there's just dudes who have never met each other will go hang out and they'll talk shit and they'll work on something, they'll build stuff, they'll do woodwork or mechanic, like work on a car or something, hang out and just talk.
That's looked down on here.
Yeah, no, that sucks.
And considered terrorism in some cases.
Really? Really? Yeah, I think those kind of groups might be useful, no?
Yeah,
I would agree. They can be, yeah. But
men in isolation, lacking skills, it's a surefire way to.
Yeah, I mean, I think, unfortunately, the places who are really strong, the organizations that are really strong about recruiting lonely people to give them a sense of belonging, typically have their own agendas when it comes to like what they're trying to accomplish with these groups of people.
What do you mean, detox? What does that mean?
So I mean, you could talk about like
gangs and stuff.
Well, gangs is a big one, first of all. A sense of belonging, but like you could talk about even churches where they're trying to, recruit more people because they want to convert them. Or you could talk about place like, what are they called? The Patriot Front or whatever. They give people a sense of belonging, like, hey, here's our meetings and we come and you guys talk and you can meet other guys like you who are like-minded. Oh, by the way, Proud Boys, things like that. Yeah. There's a lot of different things. I mean, and people find that in people who are associated with like activist groups, like like Get Rid of Oil or Pro-Palestine or things like that. There's a lot of different organizations who prey on people like that just so they can have a sense of belonging and not necessarily are catering to what those people really need. And it's not a healthy environment for them all the time.
Yeah, it's not like that here, but it sucks that that's looked down upon because of a few.
Wicked, can you drop the StreamYard?
I've done it. I've dropped it. Just quickly, Eric, you're in the back, and I asked you in the back chat because you want to come. You wanted to stay in the back. Eric, I'm confused. You've not written anything in the private chat. Did you want to come up on panel? Can you just type it in the private chat? Otherwise, I'm just holding you in the back and you want to come up. Poor Eric. I've dropped the link. So, guys, would it be beneficial, and I'm going to ask the chat as well, for me to have, for example, one night a week to do things like this for men? Would that help?
Good. I mean, in case if anyone didn't know, June is also Mental Health Awareness Month for men. So it's not just Pride Month, which June is. It's also Mental Health Awareness Month for men.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, all right, Eric. I will deal with that right now.
Do you have male only